Welcome back, Nicole. Thank you for being here and being willing to come back for a part two.
Thanks so much for having me.
Happy to see you again. Second time in 2 weeks, exactly a week
Yeah.
from yesterday, from today. So today is April, let me look at my calendar, April 4th. And we both recently had birthdays. Happy birthday to us.
Yeah.
Um, Aries season. You're an Aries. I'm a Pisces. And that just feels important to mention before we get into the next part of our conversation. So, is there anything you're feeling you want to mention before we get into our conversation?
Not really. I'm
Okay.
grateful.
Just want to give
Great,
you the chance.
grateful to be here. Grateful to be feeling better after a little bout there of sickness and yeah, the body telling me once again,
Oh, interesting.
surrender. Surrender. So yeah, so soaking up and a lot of actually some beautiful guided meditations and journeys
Oh,
that
yeah?
Asha Frost, our mutual friend, she offers. So some that I had already purchased, and then I found a beautiful one on Audible, her new one through
Oh,
Hay
I haven't
House.
listened to those
And
yet.
oh, so beautiful and so healing and just really good timing. Good timing.
Wow, she's so powerful with her words and her transmission of
Mhm.
energy, like in her oracle deck. Maybe I should
Yeah.
pick one. Maybe I should pick a
Mhm.
card today. It's over there. Can you see it, everyone? I'm pointing. Let me just get it. Okay, I'm back. So in her oracle cards, the writing for each card that you pull, I just feel like it's so enveloping. Like her words
Yeah.
just bring me to the scene and the vision that she has and is creating.
Yeah.
Should I pull one now? Since we're
Sure.
talking about Asha, we love her.
Yeah.
Um, and those meditations are what again on the Hay House that she has recently put out?
Yeah, so I actually found it on Audible,
Oh, on Audible. What did I
but
say?
she you said Hay House,
Oh,
but
Hay House.
that's the publisher.
Okay.
But you can also get it if you have an Audible. So this one was called Indigenous Teaching and Medicine Meditations for Energy Healing.
Okay.
And
Wow.
yeah, beautiful. So beautiful.
All right. So I'm stopping here. Jingle dress. Ooh, I've never picked this one before. Have
Mm.
you?
No, I haven't either.
Miracles.
Ooh, that's exciting.
Beautiful. So this deck, I've spoken about it already before, but the artwork is by Steph Littlebird, and Asher Frost is the creator of the Sacred Medicine Oracle. And maybe I'll just give it a little brief reading. Um, Jingle dress, miracles. During the 1918 flu pandemic, a little girl had fallen deathly ill and was unable to recover. Her father had a vision of dancers wearing a dress with 4 rows of jingling metal bells, and when the sick child saw the dance, she joined in, and the medicine poured through the movement of her feet, curing her. Wow. This medicine comes
Um,
forward to teach you to believe in the possibility of healing and the existence of miracles. What miracles do you want to call in at this time? What miracles, I already read that, but I'll read it again. What miracles do you want to call in at this time? The energy around you now is open to bright, brilliant possibilities. If you could wave a magic wand, what would you wish for? Your healer guides, ancestors, and animal spirits are gathering around you to deliver the answers to your prayers. Everything is possible. Just as the little girl was cured by the medicine of the jingle dress, you too hold the capacity for something equally as powerful coming to you now. Where in your life do you need miracles to touch you? Where have you felt stuck or hopeless? There is an opportunity for your situation to shift in a different, beneficial direction. Stay open to circumstances changing, for miraculous happenings are here. Nicole, do you hear that?
oh,
Listeners,
that's
do you
so
hear that?
beautiful. It
Uh,
tingles.
so, whoever's listening as well, may this resonate. The message is for you as well. The healing affirmation is I am open to miracles touching my life. And then I love the sacred ceremony that she offers. And it won't do it justice by
Yeah.
just me reading it, but I'm going to anyway.
Okay.
Listen closely and close your eyes. Envision yourself at a powwow where there are hundreds dancing in jingle dresses. This powerful music created by the jingles increases the vibration of your energy field and opens you up to all that is possible. Begin to move your hips, shake your shoulders, and gently move from side to side. As you make more space in your body, vital healing light moves through you from head to toe. Open to receive and feel nourishment and nectar filling your sacred vessel. You are now vibrating with miraculous energy. Direct it where it needs to go.
Wow, that is so beautiful.
It
And
is, yeah.
a few years ago, I started a little section on my Facebook page called Miracle Mondays, because as somebody who had struggled with anxiety and who was hearing a lot of bad news stories, right? A lot of the ugly parts that, of what humans are capable of and treating other people. I really felt how important it was for me to look for the good news stories and um, to start to remember that, even though we have challenges or difficulties in our life, things work out. And sometimes there's these unexpected, opportunities or synchronicities or whatever that happened, right? So I forget who said it, but someone said, like, think of a miracle in some ways as just a shift in perception, right?
Mm,
About what is possible. And so that really supported me, because if I would find myself in stressful situations, instead of going to that kind of anticipatory anxiety, I could kind of go like, okay, you know what? It's going to be okay. It's things are going to work out. Like, everything's okay now. I'm safe, or whatever. Or if there is a challenge or a difficulty, there's going to be a lesson here. There's going to be an opportunity. There's going to be growth or healing or what have you. And it really helped me to start to attune to, like, the goodness
mm,
um, outside and within and in my own family, and just kind of reframe and what I was noticing and what I was paying attention to. And I think about, one of the things that I learned in my compassion fatigue training was about how important it is for us, especially when we are exposed to a lot of trauma or pain or sadness because of the work that we do or by virtue of our lived experiences. It is really important. It's not about bypassing the pain, but we need to have the beauty and the joy to offset that.
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that just, when you were reading about that, that just made me think about that. And then the other piece, of course, is you are dancing, and
Oh,
like
yeah, the
that's such a
dancing.
beautiful gift that you offer. So I just thought it was really neat that that
Yeah,
that
me
was a
too.
card that you pulled for us.
It did feel like as I'm reading it, nothing in me is moving right now. Like she was inviting us to shake our shoulders. They're like as rigid as
Right.
possible. Like my feet are stuck on the ground.
Mm.
So, and it was, yeah, I did find that interesting that we pulled that one, or that I pulled it. And here
Mhm.
you are with me, and we share that love for dance and movement. And we've connected
Yeah.
over that. Thank you, Asha. And please buy her
Mhm.
cards, listen to her
Yeah.
meditations. There's nothing like hearing her offering it, right? Like something just shifts and
Mhm.
happens, and very powerful healer.
Yeah.
So part two, here we are. We're gonna deliver as promised, and we're gonna get to, we talked about fair play and Real Simple, the magazine said it's a hands-on strategy to divide tasks and achieve household harmony. And what you were suggesting that we focus on, which is great. Focus is very good. Um, and she has four rules outlined in the book to create fair
Mhm.
play in the household, with your partner, if there is a partner, with your children. So there are four rules. I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of them that we'll hone in on is all time is created equal.
Mm.
All time is created equal. And so what does that mean? Whose time
Right.
is being valued? Whose time is seeing as infinite, like women's, versus men's as
Yeah.
finite? How are we socialized? How we devalue our own time? And so should we start from there?
Sure, sure. So I made a note of what she talks about in terms of the four ways that we have been socialized to devalue our time. One way is to think about if we are making less money than our partners, we can devalue the time that we have that we're putting into the work that we do, and therefore we should be able to do more, right?
Do
Outside
everything,
of our
maybe?
jobs. Right.
Right.
Yeah. Right. This idea that my job is more flexible. And it's really interesting actually, because my husband is in a leadership role where he has female managers, and some of those are parents. And it's really interesting because now he's seeing that it's really hard if it's just the woman that is flexing all her time to take care of kids when they're sick and going to the appointments, which when ours were little, that really did fall on me. And that was kind of the mindset that we both sort of bought into, was that, well, my job was more flexible. I had a bit more sick time, whatever. But it did take a toll. It was stressful for me. I felt guilty about having to cancel on clients, or,
Mm-hmm.
trying to figure out who was going to cover for a group or what have you. Um, so it's something now that he's able to see through a different lens. And I don't have a grudge, like I don't hold a grudge. There's lots of ways that we have equity in our relationship. But it's great for him now to be able to see that through,
Mm-hmm.
and I think more, especially male managers and female managers, really need to recognize that, right? That,
Mm-hmm.
and if they are supporting that, both supporting the men in taking more time related to children's needs and health and that sort of thing, that is going to help, right? Because if there's pushback there, then it becomes really hard and it's easy to fall back into those ways.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the other one is, often as women, we have kind of believed this idea that we're better multitaskers, right? There's been some research about how men's and women's brains are, different, but there's also a lot of research coming out about the harm of multitasking,
Oh.
the toll that that takes on us emotionally and physically, and that we actually are more effective and efficient when we focus on single tasks, right? And the last one, in the time it takes to tell someone I should do it myself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So this is the one where I say, okay, yes, you have to make that investment of time in the beginning, but it's going to pay off in the long run, right? If we can put in that little bit of extra work, what we're doing is we're setting things up to be easier, right, in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But if we jump in and we say, no, you're doing it wrong, or I can do it better, or, especially if we struggle with perfectionism,
Or
um,
control issues.
or control issues,
Right.
exactly, then what we do is not only, do we kind of, it ends up hurting us in the long run because we're taking the task back on.
Mm-hmm.
But then we're also sending the message, whether it's to our partner or to our children, that we don't trust them, we don't think they're capable or competent.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're not going to step up and,
Right.
offer to do those things. They're going to, oh, okay, sure, mom wants to do it, go for it, take over, right? So
I think
it's
I'm
not our
guilty of all these
fault.
things.
And
Yes.
that's the thing, right? It's not our fault that
Right.
we have internalized these messages, right? Like, I mean, we get paid less than men,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we are being sent these messages that we are worth less than men, right? The work that is predominantly um, been done by mostly women tends to be paid less,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we we internalize that. We're fighting against that, right?
Mm-hmm. So deeply internalized in me, in all of it. I could just speak about my experience, but yeah, the all time is created equal just feels like I can sit with that one for many weeks.
Right, right. And one of the things that I try to do with my kids, and they're older, but I've tried to do this from
Mm-hmm.
a younger age, is as they're able to take on more tasks, then when there's things that need to get done, and we also want to play together, right? We want to do something fun together, is that, reminding them, I only have so much time. I only have so much capacity. So if we do this work together, then I'm going to have time and energy left over to play.
Nice.
But I'm not going to just keep going, doing all the work and then show up and play out of guilt because then I'm like resenting it. I'm not fully present. I'm not benefiting from the interaction and neither are they,
Mm,
right?
love that. I love
And
that.
this is where, like we talked about the last time, this is where our irritability, our frustration, the anger, right? This is where it serves us if we can sit with it and we can look at where is this coming from for me?
Mm-hmm.
What have I not communicated, right? Because a lot of times we're simmering and we're festering all of this, but we haven't really communicated what it is that, that's not okay, what it is that is not fair, what it is that we're needing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Can you repeat that again? What you sit down and tell them about time? I feel like
Yeah.
somewhere it went in and then I lost it.
Sure, sure. So, my son's really into chess. And so he, likes to play chess with me.
Yeah.
And of course, 90% of the time or more, he wins.
Oh, yeah.
So
Nice.
he loves that. But so, I was okay, so we could play a game of chess before dinner, but then there's things that need to get done for dinner.
Mm-hmm.
So inviting him into some of that, saying, hey, if you want to help with chopping, prepping some of the food, whatever, he generally does the cleanup after dinner and he
Nice.
does it really well and he takes pride in it now, which is
Wow.
great. So this is kind of extra, this is bonus,
Right.
but by helping him to see, hey, if you come in and you work alongside of me, then there's going to be potentially an opportunity for us to have more time left over to play,
I love that.
right? And that, that can go for laundry, that, can go for tidying up around the house, lots of different things. And also, I think a big thing, and this is that invisible load, right, is the planning,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the coordinating, the making lists, right? These are things that often weighs moms down. Um, but again, it's a case of it's invisible. So
Mm-hmm.
other people in the home aren't realizing what's happening. And so it's frustrating in a way that we have to be the ones to bring it to their attention. But I think, if we can think of it as, hey, this is about honoring a need and ultimately lightening a load,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because they're not mind readers and they can't see what's invisible,
Mm-hmm.
right?
And this we say moms, but it's like primary caregiver, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And for the most part, I mean, we're speaking as moms because that's who we are, but like they have this
Hmm.
list. Did you see the list at the back of the book? Um,
No, I
of the
haven't actually.
tasks. They have cards, right? There's a card
Hmm.
deck.
Yeah.
Um, so let me just find that. Basically, it's 100 cards of fair play, and they separate it out into 5 columns: home and all the tasks, like like garbage, groceries, home maintenance, home purchase, rental, mortgage, insurance, laundry, lawn and plants, mail, meals, kids, school, lunch, weekday dinner, weekday breakfast, weekend meals, tidying, all of that. Out. Then there's out, like birthday celebrations. Well, it goes on. Extracurricular
Hmm.
activities, school breaks, caregiving is another column, dental, doctor's appointments, grooming, friendships, and social media, um, pets, all of that. Then there's magic, which is holidays, birthday celebrations,
Mm.
gifts, middle of the night comfort. Should put that under magic.
Mm.
Spirituality, values and good deeds, and then wild, which would be I guess I'd have to read the book to know a little bit more, but anything
Mhm.
that's not in the other 4 columns, but they talk about aging, ailing parents, death, first year of infant's life, glitch in the matrix of daily consumption, home renovations, job loss and money problems, moving, new job, serious illness, welcoming a child into the home. So all these transitions. Um, But just reading through the list, like it's exhaustive and it
Yeah.
feels exhausting to read it. But like we're doing
Yeah.
it, right? We're doing it. And there's that whole
Yeah.
unpaid labor experience of
Hmm.
like the planning, the like I've got to be online at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday morning to make sure I get my kid in the summer camp. And if I'm not there, then
Right.
I'm going to lose the spot. And within 30 seconds, there's like two spots left and I missed the week that we
Yeah.
wanted. Like, how do like
It's
that
a,
energy?
it's yeah,
What's that
it's
energy?
a lot of pressure, right? It's a lot of pressure. And one of the things that is really nice about the making, the invisible visible
Yeah.
and inviting the conversations is, the Gottmans talk about, I think it's like 70 or more percent of our conflicts are perpetual problems, right? They're things that we're not going to resolve because we're different individuals, right? Who come from different backgrounds, different lived experiences, both the positive memories as well as, the distressing or even traumatic memories. And we bring that with us into our experiences. And so certain things are triggers for us, but not for our partners. Certain things are associated as being really positive and really important to our partners. And maybe it was something that wasn't really ever a big deal or an issue for our partners. So by coming together and having these conversations, it's not just about dividing up the tasks, but it actually can be a really beautiful way of deepening connection.
Hmm.
If we come from it from that place of, I want to get to know you better. I want to
Hmm.
get to understand why this matters to you, or why this is something that never seems like it's a big
Doesn't
deal.
matter to you.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Because instead what happens often, and I hear this from clients, and I have had some experiences in the past, what I would start to feel, it's like you feel that buildup, of frustration, resentment, and there's disconnection that happens with you and your partner because you're like, they don't understand, they don't care about me, this matters to me.
I'm
So
doing
if
it
they're
all.
not right, and so
They're
if
not
they're not
acknowledging it.
taking this seriously, then that means I don't matter to them. That's
Mm.
often a leap that we will make, and that's a really dangerous leap because, obviously that's going to create disconnection in our relationships, right? And then what we're putting out there to our partners is not really, sort of that invitational, positive kind of energy that makes them want to be close to us. It's that whether we're conscious of it or not, it can push them further away,
Yeah.
right? So it's not to say that there's not legitimacy to our anger, but I think it's
Yeah.
really important to really get curious about it because sometimes it is connected to these earlier experiences. And sometimes we might be projecting that same story or attachment, you know, experience onto our partners or even onto our children. And so when
Hmm.
we have these conversations and we say, like, this is why it matters to me. This is what it was like for me. And this is why this is so important.
Hmm.
It shifts, right? It
Mm.
shifts that, oh, okay, this is not about, her being a neat freak or her nagging or, all of the things, right? This is, oh, wow, this is what she needs to feel grounded or to feel loved,
Hmm.
supported, right? And it becomes a lot easier and vice versa, with our partners. And then what we're doing from that is we're saying, okay, so this is what life was like for us growing up. What of these things do we want to keep and we want to build on because they were really beautiful and wonderful, and we want to pass that value on to our children and our family? And what if these things were not helpful or even harmful and that we want to let go of? And so together, we're creating this new story as a family, but
Hmm.
it's important to look at like kind of the origins of that first because that's
Hmm.
going to influence.
Water break. I mean,
Mm.
it takes work, conscious effort, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Obviously, we know that relationships
Hmm.
worth the effort, but requires sincere effort.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's the same with our children, right? If we jump in, too quickly to take over for them, or, we feel bad for them because everything they've gone through from the pandemic, right? We're like, oh, we just want life to be easy and
Yeah.
happy. And, you know, um, we, or we want to make up for all the things that maybe they missed. And so we overschedule to overcompensate, and we're exhausted.
Right.
And they are a little bit too. And then they're also sometimes not getting those opportunities to really feel like they are contributing to the
Hmm.
family, contributing to the team, which is important for their resiliency,
Hmm.
right? I mean, we don't want them to grow up with this sense of entitlement and that everybody is going to cater to them, because they're going to have a rude awakening when they get out there in the real
Hmm.
world.
Hmm. Yeah. Thanks for
Right?
unpacking that. Um, yeah, you said the word grudge earlier on. I'm like, yeah, I know about that. My husband's really good at not holding grudges. Like it just
Hmm.
somehow slips off of him, which is something I noticed early on in our relationship that I was very grateful for. Um, and I could see how I don't know that I would call it grudge, but the festering, guilty of that. And so, that doesn't help me. I'm aware that my emotions are, indicators of something that I'm needing to acknowledge and express and move. But
Right.
yeah, it's forever learning and growing together. And I'm just looking at my part and my role and responsibility and how I contribute to overdoing, and how, like, if I
Hmm.
did give over, or why am I not giving over, or how can I give
Hmm.
over because I'm keeping my partner from experiencing either perhaps the pleasure or responsibility that can belong to him.
Right.
So just looking at all of that has been always interesting at different phases of the parenting journey, that we've been
Yeah,
on. So yeah.
absolutely. And, a lot of us didn't see healthy conflict,
Hmm.
right? Not necessarily we saw yelling and screaming or abuse, although certainly a lot of people did. And so conflict gets associated with something that is to be avoided because it's scary and it's threatening, right?
Hmm.
Um, but also, when I would ask clients, like, what did you see? They would say, well, they had those conversations behind closed doors, right? We didn't really get to see how they worked it out. It either seemed like dad was in charge, or yeah, it seemed like, they shared decision making or whatever, but we never saw really how they did that. And I think it's something that's really important for us as parents to be modeling, like, it's very rare that my husband and I will raise our voice. So if we do get a little bit heated, the kids right away will be like, "You guys, why are you arguing?" Da da da. And so I always joke. I say, "No, we're just kind of bantering, right?"
Yeah.
But it's important for our children to see us be able to talk about some of these things, and how we're working it out, how
Hmm.
we're listening to each other with respect, and how we're getting curious and,
Hmm.
tell me more about that, right? And then how we're also, kind of checking in with ourselves. Well, how's this making me feel? What's coming up for me? Can I stay in this conversation, or do I need to take a break, right? Because
Hmm.
sometimes it can be triggering, and we can get flooded, and it's better to take a break in order
Hmm.
to calm down, right?
Yeah.
To physiologically soothe. Other times, they can see us making a repair, so if we've had a bit of a reactive type of response, or maybe it's been a little bit hurtful in how it's come across, well, we can model that repair for them,
Hmm.
right? Like, and model expressing appreciation and acknowledgement. And it's something that I think is really, really important, not just for our children to see, but also what that then creates between, us and our partner, in terms of, again, that increased sense of
Hmm.
connection, and that buffer for those challenging or difficult times.
Yeah. I was thinking as you were talking, if it would be wonderful to, like, see a role play between you and your
Mm.
your husband while your kids are there, just the way you described it is like, wow, all that modeling going on.
Mm.
And I know you write about it too, and I always,
Mhm.
there's much to glean from what you share, and you share personal
Mm,
things that not too personal, but personal, and that it relates to your family and your dynamic that
right.
feels helpful. So yeah, thank you for that.
Mm. Oh, well, a great thing is the family meeting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to give everybody a chance to kind of go around and to share, like, well, okay, what do they feel is going well? Right? What do they appreciate about each other? And then what's one thing, right? So we want to keep it small. We don't want to like overwhelm our kids with all these things, but we found that was really helpful in terms of some of the areas that we were feeling like we needed them to step up, right? They weren't, it was becoming like a point of frustration. It was
Mm-hmm.
becoming, like, okay, I'm again carrying that load of reminding whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So then using that forum when we're, more grounded and calm, and maybe we have a little snack or something, or have something fun planned
Definitely
afterwards.
snack in our house. Yep.
Yeah. And you just like, okay, so how can we make this work? What has worked in the past? What is making it hard for you? How can I help? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what are
Great
some of the
questions.
things that need to get done? Right? One of the things that I noticed my son really struggled when it came to like cleaning his room. He really resisted that. And it would be exhausting sometimes. And sometimes he could get very heightened. And so we would, sort of, okay, so how can we break this down? How can we make this more fun? And so, we'd play music. We'd, agree to let's set a timer and you do it for a certain amount of time and then you take a break and you get to do
Mm-hmm.
something fun. Then we come back to it. Maybe we're going to do some of it together. We had one game that we used to play where I can't remember if it was me or my husband who thought of it, but we called it flashlight cleanup. And so we would shine a light on something that, needed to get put away. And I think it's such a simple thing, right? But part of it was the fact that there was the connection piece there, right?
Love
So
that. Yeah.
again,
Yeah, the
it's one of those
connection.
things where you could say, I don't have time for this. There's so many other things that, need to get done. But when you make that investment when they're younger, then ideally what's going to happen is that, they're internalizing some of that.
Yeah.
And recently, my son went to town on his room
Yeah.
and did an amazing job. And his
Wow.
room is the tidiest room in the house.
Amazing.
And other than some dirty laundry that ends up on the floor, he's maintained that and he's really taken pride in that. So I offer that as hope for
Thank you.
the parents
Hope
out
and good
there.
parenting. So much effort and love goes into the family that you've created.
Oh, and there was trying times,
Yeah.
let me tell you.
I
So,
have no doubt.
some of this was born out of
Yeah.
what's not working, and we
Right.
can't keep doing what's not working, right? So let's all, and again, like you said, like what is my part here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, and so it's as much about um, problem solving together,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all being willing and open to make changes to set each other up for success and to
Mm-hmm.
honor each other's needs.
Yeah. Actually, it makes me think of something you shared with me before we went into the recording. Um, what does it mean to be a team?
Mm,
Like if we see the family unit as a team, right?
right. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I've really tried to instill that, from a young age. And I think partly because I had clients, women that I would work with who had teenagers, and they had been doing everything for, their kids. And then all of a sudden the kids became teenagers and they were frustrated and resentful because why weren't the kids stepping up? Like they were old enough, they should be doing more, they should be contributing. And well, I could empathize with these moms because they were tired, right? And they had bought into that patriarchal myth of motherhood that we should do it all. And at the same time, when we reach a certain age, we do, a light bulb doesn't just go off and say, "Oh, well, now I'm going to do all that." Like, no
It
way,
doesn't?
man.
Oh no. Yeah.
They are, if it's working for them,
Yeah.
they're gonna keep doing what they've always been doing, and they're not gonna. feel bad or guilty or, like, so instilling that
I was
sense of
banking on that, Nicole.
teamwork.
My plan is ruined. No.
So instilling that sense of we're all in this together. We're
Yeah,
a team.
right. I love
And they
that.
say like as little as 3 years old,
Oh,
there is benefits to getting kids involved in doing things to help out around the house, right?
yeah.
And taking some ownership. My kids were pretty young when they started making their own lunches. I mean, I was there with them to supervise, um, but
Like how young?
even
How
I
many years am
can't
I behind? Yeah.
I can't
I'm
remember
putting us
exactly,
so
but
down. Yeah. It's like we do nothing. Nobody does anything. Um, we just eat and make a mess. No. What age? Like when you say, I know some kids are into making their lunches pretty early on.
yeah. Yeah.
My kids do like to cook and bake.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I can't remember exactly.
Yeah,
Some of it just feels like it was a
I
bit of a
know.
blur,
Right.
but just when they start to express an interest. So for anybody out there that has little ones,
Hmm.
when they're starting to express an interest, that's a great opportunity, right? And I know like what some parents will do is they'll put lower level cabinets and drawers. They'll put like some of the healthy snacks and the easy to grab snacks and things like that, right? So that you're promoting some of that independence, but you're also teaching them that you can't just take whatever you want, right?
Right.
My daughter has a bit of a sweet tooth, so I do tell her like you have to check in with me first before you have a snack. And really, what I'm trying to teach her is let's be mindful about what you're eating.
Hmm.
And like, are you hungry? And have you satisfied your food groups? Because, during the pandemic, sometimes we were eating out of boredom or we were turning to like the chips and the sweets and stuff as a way to kind of like, well, we need some kind of treat, like,
Where's the
we-
pleasure?
yeah, exactly. So, I also realized, oh my goodness, I've slipped away from some of my mindful eating, right? And so, um,
I feel like
trying
mindful
to,
and eating
like,
don't belong together in a sentence. Or they do belong, but they feel very
mm,
hard to make it like a coherent, pair
right, right, right.
as a parent.
Yeah, yeah. And so when they're helping to do some of those things, those are teachable moments, right? Where you can talk to them about nutrition
Hmm.
and, you know, um, what is important and why is it important for the body. Okay. And it's not that we want to teach deprivation. And we don't want to say there's good food and bad food,
Right.
right? Because we don't want to have them actually crave more of the stuff that's not healthy. But what are healthy choices? What are things that your body needs, right?
Hmm.
And then let's be mindful, and we would try to pair some more of that like higher sugar, higher fat kind of snacks with, okay, well, we can do that, but we need to go for a bike ride or we need to
Hmm.
go for a walk or,
Hmm.
although that can backfire on you because then
Yeah. I
our
mean,
kids are
I
like,
feel like
did we go
this
for
is a
a
whole
bike ride to
series
get
on
ice
itself.
cream? No, every time we go for a bike ride, we're not getting ice cream. But
But I could go for one now myself, so let's get one.
yeah.
Um, yeah, food. That's a big one. But and no buts. I love
Mhm.
everything you're sharing, and we all have our own experiences, based on
Yeah.
our histories with it, based on
Mhm.
current, based on the personalities in the household, based
Yeah.
on their experience, based on the partner's own history. There's so
Yeah.
many competing forces at times, right? That
Yeah.
make it
Yeah.
a little harder at times to make it optimum or feel
Yeah.
optimum. And I love your
Yeah.
resources that you bring and what you share. Yeah. What were you
Yeah.
gonna say?
And if we, so I think sometimes if we felt like um, our moms were really busy, they weren't able to be emotionally present for us, we may try to overcompensate by, being there all the time and doing everything for our children, because we remember, sort of that pain or that loneliness or that, questioning, our worth. But the problem with that is that we're not really connecting to actually the root, pain, which is our own, right? And so that's where that reparenting and that growing up again piece is about, okay, how do I honor my needs alongside of my children? So I'm not swinging the pendulum all the way to the other side, right?
Hmm.
Which, can result in exhaustion and burnout for moms, right? The flip side of it is I've had clients who were like, but I saw my mom do everything, right? I saw my mom do everything, so if she could do it all, why
Hmm.
can't I?
Right.
Right. And then we take that on, but we are not necessarily privy when we're children to what toll that's taking on on mom or on dad, right?
Hmm.
And so we need to remember that just because we saw that doesn't mean that that was what was best, right? Or that there wasn't, potential long-term consequences, right? As far as impacts on emotional or physical health and
Hmm.
well-being.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. You used the word, well, burnout. You mentioned that, and we talked about it in part
Mhm.
one, and then we moved into this recent experience you had becoming a practitioner or receiving a certification in
Mhm.
compassion fatigue.
Yeah. Mhm.
And I know we've already been in this discussion for quite some time today, conversation, and here we are again. I'm like, it's going so fast. Is there anything you want to speak to before, like, we start wrapping it up in a couple of minutes? Around, well, first of all, is there anything left over that you feel is important to share with people about this idea of like equality or equity in the relationship,
Mhm.
or in the family, this idea of fair play? Is there anything else around that, or do you want to move into the burnout, compassion, fatigue?
I think it's just again holding that compassion for ourselves, right? And for our partners too, because we're all being socialized in this. I call it the lie or the myth, right, of patriarchal motherhood, and patriarchy that, sort of like has these incredible expectations on women,
Mm-hmm.
and then almost like sets the bar pretty low for men. And then at the same time, though, says that, men are the ones that are worth more. And it's just ridiculous.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
ridiculous. So, I think a big part of the work is for, if possible, as a couple to really unpack that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And to say, again, right, what of this does not serve me, does not serve my family. And I really love the book. I think it's by Michael Kaufman. It's called The Time Has Come. And he's one of the co-creators of the White Ribbon campaign. So he's a male feminist, writer, and he talks about like why in so many different ways it's so important for men to be part of this movement towards equality and gender equity, um, and how it benefits them as well in all areas of their life. So it's really important that we don't just see this as like this is a women's issue or this is
Mm-hmm.
mom's responsibility, right? Um, and then in terms of the compassion fatigue and what can make us vulnerable to that. And again, it's both. There are individual kind of vulnerabilities, but then there are also these environmental, systemic,
Yeah.
cultural, contextual issues, right? Regardless of what we're talking about here. But I think sort of that theme that we talked about that kind of brings it all together is, whether you are caring for your child or whether you are caring for a client or a patient or a student, is to try to remember that you can't carry all the responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
It's too much for one person, and we need to remember that we are not the only ones, right? Despite what maybe we have been told or how we've been socialized or even that identity that we've taken on, right? Not only is there other, people, supports, resources, whatever that can, that can wrap around and support families or support clients or patients or students, but also how we view the client, the patient, the student, right? Like, are we seeing them through this lens of you are helpless, you are a victim, oh my goodness, you have all these things going against you? Or can we see them through that lens of you are you are strong, you are a survivor, you are creative, you have infinite potential, you are incredible, you are wise, right? And the body, as you know, Julie, right? There's like so much wisdom within the body, to heal, right? And to
Mm-hmm.
come back into that integration, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I think it's just like, if we can remember, how are we seeing ourselves? How are we seeing others? And again, kind of coming back to that idea of like, miracles happen when we shift our perspective,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah.
we take some of that pressure off of ourselves and some of that, kind of heavy weight or burden that we might be feeling, and it might be manifesting in physical, pain or tension. But we are also kind of giving back this sense of, I see you, I believe in you. And I remember Asha saying at a mentorship weekend that I attended with her, that when she works with her homeopathic patients and her healing sessions that she was doing, she would see them as their highest healed version of themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved that in terms of, shifting how we relate to them and what we can essentially bring out in them
Mm-hmm.
and how they see themselves, right? And so again, it's not about bypassing their pain or the barriers that they may face, but it's about, you know, how are we um, helping to helping them to see the truth of who they are and that they are not limited by their circumstances, right? And there's so many examples of that. I think that's why I love memoirs, right? I love reading these stories and seeing, people who have come from, some really hard or horrific circumstances, and this is incredible healing journeys that they're able to accomplish. And like, the human spirit is just
Mm-hmm.
amazing,
Yeah.
right? It's just amazing.
Yeah. You said also before we started recording that you were talking about Sharon LaPlante,
Mhm.
that caregiving is like, I know it sounds obvious, but when you said it, it sounded like it just struck a chord. Like, we're
Mhm.
caring. This is about the capacity to care for someone else. And what
Yeah.
does it mean to care, and how deep that can take someone and
Yeah.
be all encompassing. And you talked about it, is it as an identity or as a role?
Right. Yeah. And so Sharon is a beautiful nurse, very, very wise, and just has one of those lovely, lovely presence and voices. So I love her blog. One of the things she often talks about is we live in a society, again, that devalues, right? Devalues caring. It
Mm,
devalues caregiving. It devalues this intangible work that, we don't necessarily have a product at the end,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
Um, but there is incredible ripples
Mm-hmm.
when we are able to offer that care, that presence to someone, and we may never know how far that ripples out, the impacts, that can have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that piece is really important,
Yeah.
right? And whether it's mothering and it feels thankless, or whether it's, we're working, like I worked for a nonprofit agency for a long time, constantly
Mm,
funding cuts, and, like, talk about, scarcity and not feeling valued, right?
mm-hmm.
And so you have to try to build that from within. You have to look for and celebrate yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
that's not always something that we're used to doing, right? And we have to, I think, celebrate that, the power of caring and presence, and not underestimate that.
Mm-hmm. And that caring comes from your heart.
Hmm.
And to have an open heart also
Yeah.
requires a level of awareness around how are you taking care of your heart, you know?
Right, right. Because we don't want to just have it, I talk about boundaries kind of, I use the analogy of doors. So we have like if our boundaries are totally closed off, it's like the door is slammed shut, double bolted, right? No windows, no nothing, right? If we have no boundaries, the door is swung wide open and anything and everyone can come in, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so we need a screen, we need a filter,
Mm.
right? And so part of that is to be able to, have space to take in the good, but also to filter out, right? Whether it's criticism or whether it's, our own inner critic, right? Saying, oh, this isn't enough, I should be doing more, or whether that's, maybe we're only taking somebody so far on a journey, right? That's the other piece about, about caregiving is that, you know it's temporary,
Right.
right? Even with our children, the
Yeah.
influence that we have gets less and less and less, right? And if
Hmm.
our whole sense of self-worth and identity is tied into that, and then they struggle in some way, then that has huge impacts on how we feel about ourselves. Or when they don't need us in the same way,
Hmm.
then we can just feel really lost and like, what's the point and what's my purpose? And I've worked with some moms at that stage of sort of empty nest, right? And it's like, oh my goodness, I I don't know who I am apart from, this identity, right? And so it's this whole process of um, coming home, right, to yourself and getting to know yourself. And so again, I think it's important, if possible, right, to be protecting some of those aspects of our identity while we are, identifying as mothers. It's such sacred work. It's
Hmm.
such hard work.
Yeah.
It can feel all consuming, and we are more than mothers.
Mm. Indeed, we are. And thank you, Nicole, for unpacking so eloquently all of this stuff that can weigh so heavily on people, and for neatly and concisely putting into beautiful phrases that
Mm.
feel like I can take them home and sort of gently unpack them one at a time and look at them and examine them and think about
Mm.
them, and remember what you said because you do it so poignantly. So thank you for all of that and for the work that you do. And as you were talking, I was thinking how suddenly, I don't know, is it Tina Fey, the comedian from
Mhm.
it's like you're reminding me of Tina Fey right now, even though there's nothing
Oh.
comedic about what you're sharing, but your mannerism, and I was like, Tina Fey is coming in right now. Have you ever been told that?
I have not. I have
Okay.
not, but I do have a silly side that comes out every once in a while.
Um, so that being said, we've directed people already to your website. Do you want to say anything else where they can find you? Again, maybe remind them. We're going to put
Yeah.
resources in the notes. Um, and yeah.
Yeah, so my website is just peaceandpossibility.ca. I have an author page on the Gottman Institute just under my name, and there's a link to that on my website, so you can read any of my previous articles. The next one that's coming out is going to go into more detail about how do we make this invisible load visible and get our
Hmm.
kids really involved. So
Love
including
that.
some of the links to research and what some of the experts are saying around that,
Okay.
to counter some of what we've internalized. So there's that. And then I think we chatted a little bit in the last one about this idea of doing an Instagram live series interviews. And so my vision is to call it More Than Mothers and to invite other mothers in to just talk a little bit about like how you protect those parts of yourself and how you work through some of that mom guilt and the benefits of that. Because I think that's what's so important, right? So much of the mom guilt isn't helping us.
Yeah.
And so instead of, these things that we worry, we fear in terms of how it's going to impact our kids, we need to be reminded about how it not just benefits us, but how it benefits everyone. And
Right.
I think that stories are such a beautiful way for people to connect and to see aspects of themselves in that. And, maybe just over time, hearing more of those stories might start to help people to push past some of that unhelpful guilt,
Hmm.
and to honor what they need to thrive, and to honor those other parts of themselves that are, needing to be watered, needing to, to come up and feel that sunlight on their face, right?
Yeah.
So that's
And
another.
often we could there, I mean, I know I could speak for myself and I don't want to start a whole other conversation, but like the blind spots that go along with that. Like I know
Right.
that we're more than mothers. I know that there's priority, you have to prioritize yourself. And yet, for example, I still keep doing the same thing that keeps me from
Right.
taking time off for myself, in the evening, or
Hmm.
like I keep repeating the same patterns.
Right.
So that's interesting. It's very interesting.
It's a journey,
It's a
right?
journey,
It's a
and
journey.
so glad that you're out
Yeah.
there supporting people and having these conversations. And thank you for doing that. I love the More Than Mothers title.
Mm.
Congrats. I'll be looking for that.
Thank you.
And I know we'll be talking again. Maybe there won't be a part 3, but we can start part 1 over. Thank you, Nicole. So good to see you and hear your wisdom. And I hope that you get into. I just was seeing you like on media outlets also. Like I know Tina Fey
Aw.
popped in, but then also like get her onto the Social and the View, and I don't know, like you're so well spoken, and you say just the right things that I feel hit the right spots. So thank you.
Aw, thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate that. And as I've said before, I think you're such a gifted um, interviewer in that sense of, you feel that sense of that, you're feeling heard, and your presence is there, and that you're listening, you're following, and you're also, reflecting and connecting. And so, yeah,
Thank
look
you. And
look forward to
distracting
connecting
and
again.
not being focused. Yes, me too. Thank you, Nicole.
All right, take care. Bye, everyone.